Meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Ms. LeBreau?
Mr. Barnes.
Present.
Ms. Cantor.
Here.
Mr. Davidoff.
Here.
Mr. Dodge.
Here.
Ms. Fay.
Here.
Ms. Kerrigan. Mr. Sweeney. Mr. Wenograd. Here. And Mr. Williams.
Here.
Thank you, Ms. LeBreau. Number 4, Ms. Kerrigan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move approval of minutes of the Town Council meeting 1/8/2019.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Number 5 is the public forum section of our meeting, and this is something that the public can speak to, anything on the agenda that is not the subject of a public hearing. And the form is blank. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to say anything about anything on the agenda? Okay, number 6, Ms. Kerrigan.
I move we place items 8 through 11 and 17 through 20 on the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. And number 7, Ms. Kerrigan.
You're going to withdraw.
No, I was going to do the proclamations, but I'm going to wait till after this. Number 7?
Is withdrawn.
Right, shouldn't we read it, though, to be withdrawn?
Last time.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right, so
well, last time you
Oh, I'm sorry. Ordinance permitting accessory apartments in one family residence district. This item has been withdrawn. And before we go to the reports from the town manager, I'm going to make a motion to suspend the rules.
second.
Second
Sorry.
motion has been made and second. That's okay. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. We will be presenting 2 proclamations, and we'll start with one proclamation. Well, I'll explain when I'm up. I don't need to stand up there now because I'm not really presenting it. It's sort of. The first proclamation is the census proclamation. This is something that we did actually in 2009 prior to the 2010 census, and we are obviously doing this again. And this is a little self-explanatory, but the census will be starting full-fledged. I attended a meeting in Hartford by the U.S. Census Bureau, and there was a lot of emphasis on the importance of this information and how it is used. So whereas the U.S. Constitution requires the federal government to count the population every 10 years, and the U.S. Census Bureau has the duty and responsibility to complete the 2020 census, and whereas the official population count established by the 2020 census is used to determine representation in state and federal government, which is the foundation of our country's representative democracy, and whereas the 2020 census numbers are also used to determine the level of federal funding for state and local jurisdictions, including the distribution of important resources for healthcare, education, communication, transportation, infrastructure, senior services, public safety, and social services, as well as providing key data for nonprofit organizations. And whereas the Society of American Archivists states that since 1790, the census has served as a record of the American people, collecting valuable information relating to numbers, geographic location, origin, race, immigration status, education, and employment, and has been used by genealogists, social scientists, historians, and researchers to trace trends in American society and to support a variety of other projects and initiatives. And whereas the United States Conference of Mayors and the International City County Management Association recommend the establishment of a complete count committee in order to increase awareness and motivate residents to respond to the 2020 census questionnaire, notwithstanding the fact that there may be suspicion or fear of such federal documents by some residents. And whereas a complete count committee is comprised of a cross-section of local community groups with the mission to ensure that the importance of the 2020 census is effectively communicated to as many residents as possible through locally based targeted outreach efforts. And therefore be it resolved that the town of West Hartford establish a complete count committee comprised of up to 9 members with representation from every aspect of the local community, including social services, faith-based and community-based organizations, education and government, with the mayor and town manager to serve as co-chairs. And so this is really important, and there will be more information rolling out. A lot will be done out of our libraries, especially our Faxon branch library. Pramod was actually going to be here. I guess he's not, but we will be, again, announcing a lot of activities starting fairly soon on this effort. And the second proclamation, actually, Bernie, why don't you meet me up there? We can. This proclamation came out of discussion that I had with Mr. Pelletier, who really believed that West Hartford could do a little better on some of our energy efforts. And he is, I don't know, are you chair of the Clean Energy? You have been secretary, okay. The Clean Energy Commission established in town. We had a task force that became a commission very committed to clean energy, but also a lot of sustainability efforts. And Catherine DeVinny is our representation from the town, and she has done a lot with this commission and worked very hard. But the request was brought up that we might benefit from a sister city relationship, and I'm sure Bernie will talk to this a little bit. But the proclamation reads, whereas West Hartford is a vibrant, diverse, and global community, and whereas West Hartford has engaged citizens, many of whom come from different countries, adding to our vibrancy and diversity, who share experiences of their place of birth, work, or study, and whereas West Hartford is an environmentally, socially, and culturally forward-thinking community, and whereas West Hartford is a member of Sustainable CT and is researching ways to become more sustainable, and whereas many global communities have established structural changes and implemented practices that are sustainable and benefit all of their citizens, and whereas a sister city is a city that is linked to another for various reasons, including educational, cultural, and commercial, which can either be legally binding or purely symbolic and social, and whereas Sister Cities International recognizes, celebrates, and magnifies the catalytic power of people-to-people interaction through mutual respect, understanding, and cooperation, one individual, one community at a time, through voluntary ties to encourage cultural understanding, friendship, and partnerships. And whereas cities that have established sister city relationships have benefited in many ways, including shared information and knowledge, sustainable practices and initiatives, educational exchanges, and enhanced economic development. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the town of West Hartford establish a sister city task force comprised of 5 to 7 members appointed by the mayor to research establishing a sister city relationship for the primary benefit of sharing sustainable practices in addition to cultural, social, and economic connections, and to report back to the town council prior to June 30th, 2019. And so, Mr. Pelletier, if you would like to speak to that.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor Cantor, and I want to recognize Johannes Evelyn, who is my co-conspirator. He's very shy at the moment, which is uncharacteristic for him. Very, very quickly, I would just like to say that our hope is to find a town somewhere, probably in Europe, that is like us in size, like us in its weather and natural challenge, but very different in their approach to energy, to sustainability, to water manner, and through a prism of difference, find out different ways of doing all the things we take for granted now. And hopefully some of what we'll see is we're very happy with what we find, and say we may find some other ideas that we say, this is a really good idea, we should adopt this. It will take some effort from this town council. I would just say, compared to what you're entering into in terms of working on the budget, it should be a piece of cake. I think you can look at this as a piece of candy at the end of that process. And the other benefit I see for West Hartford is that in the act of courting a suitor, finding some town to be our sibling, we will look inside and we will discover and rediscover things about ourselves that we either didn't know or had forgotten. Mayor Cantor, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Hannes, too. I appreciate very much all the outreach. But this is what makes West Hartford so special, is residents like this that come step forward and make us better. We're trying to make us better than we are today. So thank you so much. Appreciate it. Actually, do you want to? Well, we're very happy for you. First of many. More thing, I'd like to suspend the rules to adopt a resolution.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. The only problem is I don't have a copy of the resolution. Thank you. Okay, this is a resolution implementing an act establishing the federal shutdown affecting employees loan program and providing additional assistance to federal employees. Because this happened so quickly, I'm just going to describe a little bit, and Mr. Allaire, if you want to enlighten us too. Today, the legislature, in a bipartisan fashion, manner, they adopted legislation that would provide for affected federal employees to obviously have a loan opportunity, as well as delaying potentially property and personal taxes if this shutdown does go on. Many of these federal workers are required to go to work, may not be able to look for other employment, expected to be there and yet not be paid. And now it's going on over, I think it's over 30 days now. So we felt that this was important. Our tax bills are due January 31st, and we're not meeting again until the second weekend in February. So we felt this was important to do quickly and to give our federal employees in town a little peace of mind prior to while they're going through these very challenging times. With that, motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Mr. Barnes.
I'd just like to make a quick comment on it. This resolution, I've not put my name as a sponsor of the resolution. The mayor made me aware of it a couple hours before the meeting, and basically from driving home to work to coming over here tonight thinking about it. And certainly, understanding the pressure that this creates for people in our community that fall into this category, but wondering about other folks that are laid off or out of work and not receiving the same type of attention, where we would create this particular right or opportunity for folks that don't fall into this category, and thinking in some ways that it's inequitable in its application. And then also I wondered whether it was actually necessary, since my understanding is we do have hardship opportunities in the tax office, that if somebody had a hardship, and this certainly would qualify as one, they would be able to go down there and, be able to defer their tax payment, maybe with a penalty, maybe with some interest. I'm not sure what the terms are, but that there is a mechanism in place for people that are suffering from a hardship. So I wonder whether, this type of proposal is actually necessary. Now, I won't pass on what the state did. I'm not fully aware of all the provisions of it, but with respect to this suspense resolution item, I just felt like, one, it was unnecessary, and also I think in some ways creates a separate category of employee when there are others that may be in the same predicament but not have the same right or opportunity to benefit from it. So thank you for letting me say that.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. Anybody else? Ms. Kerrigan?
Thank you. Yeah, I am signing on because I think that the substantial difference between the two situations is when an individual works for a company, a corporation, and is in fact let go, it's an unlimited amount of time. And right now, it's one of these situations where for a limited period of time, that's a big question mark, how long that period of time is. We should be able to help them out in some way, knowing they're serving our country, serving our government. So I am supporting it.
Thank you, Ms. Kerrigan. And one of the things that I think that's very different is they're required to go to, many of the employees are required to go to work. So, and you can't look for another job and you can't, so that's quite a difference. Mr. Dodge.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's interesting. I think one unique thing that's affecting these workers, as you mentioned, is that they can't really actively look for other jobs. In fact, I was listening on the news, they were talking about how many of them are having difficulty working with temp agencies because there aren't companies who are interested in taking them on, even on a temporary basis, because any day now the federal government could work. And as Ms. Kerrigan said, typically when a company lays people off, they have the opportunity to look for other work, and they don't make them come in and work for free, which is essentially what's happening here. I know there's, they will in all likelihood be paid at some point. But if any other company did that, it would frankly be illegal. It's only the federal government that can do that. And so it is a somewhat unique situation. But as Washington descends into complete dysfunction, I was very pleased that our legislature and our governor were able to work today in a bipartisan fashion to come up with what I think was a very creative, I won't call it a solution, but method of relief to just a small measure of relief to provide to these workers. And so I'm very pleased that we can play a small role in that.
Thank you. Mr. Sweeney.
Yeah, I think I would follow in the footsteps of Mr. Dodge as well. And just in regards to Mr. Barnes' comment, I think when we have crises like this in town, I think it's upon this body to make sure that we do everything to help people. And I think what we're doing here is, Mr. Barnes, you spoke about how there could be penalties or there could be programs in place, but what we're doing here today is we're taking the could out of it. I think we're saying that we're going to do this today. We're going to help people in a moment of which we haven't actually seen before in this country's history in regards to this long of a shutdown. And I think it's really great that we are doing it. And to echo what Mr. Dodge said, it was fantastic to see this new legislature work in a bipartisan way, and actually rather quickly for them to do it in, I think, about like 3 hours to get this done. So I applaud the mayor's efforts on doing this. I think we're going to be the first municipality in the state to move on this, and I think it shows again. Kudos to the staff here for getting this ready so quickly. But this is similar to some of the acts that the town has taken in the recent history. I think we dealt with this in regards to the recent tax proposal. Well, we made the tax office flexible in regards to dealing with the salt payments. So I think this is just another step and another thing for the town to demonstrate how flexible this administration can be, and also I think more importantly, how we can act like neighbors to our people here in town, and really respect the fact that they work for the federal government, and they can't control what's going on right now. So I applaud the mayor for doing this, and thank you.
Thank you. There are, Mr. David.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I, too, would like to applaud you for your efforts for getting this done in such a rapid manner, having the legislature recently act this hours ago and having the governor sign it and make it law. I think a key point and distinction is in one of the paragraphs where it says the deferment of their taxes to the town of West Hartford without interest or penalty differentiates any other hardship program we may offer residents who are having a hard time paying their taxes. Penalties and interest can add up quite rapidly for those faced with that real estate tab. And as we all know, and we've heard around the table, that real estate taxes in West Hartford aren't the lowest in the region. But when you start doing it at 2% and add on a penalty, that can add up quite quickly. This is a situation where the federal workers find themselves in a situation that's really just a matter of the fact of where they're employed, not because of what they're not doing, or their inability to pay is not because they don't want to pay. It's they're sort of forced because they're not receiving a paycheck for work that they're performing. And I think that's a huge thing. And I'm proud to support this evening because it just sort of stresses to the rest of the state that West Hartford is a compassionate place to live, and its leaders understand the financial realities of the citizens in its community. And just like we offer food assistance for those struggling in times on a temporary basis, let's just hope that this measure this evening is temporary. It's a one-time thing, and that the federal government realizes that its responsibility to the American public is to get this government open again and to provide the services that we pay our taxes for and that all Americans expect and deserve. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. Ms. Fay.
Thank you, Mayor. There we go. I did decide to sign on to this for a very simple reason. I think this might be beating it a little bit, but it's a temporary situation. We have all confidence that these federal workers will ultimately be paid and be paid their back pay. So it really truly is a simple cash flow crunch for them right now. I do respect what Mr. Barnes had to say. And there are a bunch of people who do have hardships of all different varieties, people who are laid off, out of work, sick, whatever. And I thought of this as a little bit differently because of, A, the temporary nature of it, where it would be a pretty good bet that we're going to get our taxes as soon as people do get their paychecks back. And B, it's a class of people. So you're treating every class the same way, where everybody's got unusual circumstances with financial hardship that would be hard to administer such a program. This reminds me of the days when I was at GE Capital, and it was right after 9/11. And if you remember those days, aside from all the trauma and the loss of life and the other things that we faced, the stock market was closed for a very long period of time. And we had people coming to us. I was running one of the asset-based businesses, and they needed their money, and we had no way to price it. So we decided that we would go back and we would give them up to 50% of what their last balance was, on good faith that if they needed their money, we were going to give it to them, and then we'd rectify it and true it up or whatever afterwards. And I kind of view this as sort of that kind of a circumstance, that we're helping people get through a cash crunch time, and I'm sure that they'll make good on their loan from us.
Thank you, Ms. Fay. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Mr. Barnes.
Just one final comment. I appreciate all the comments. What I think you're doing is creating a precedent going forward. In my time on the council, we've never taken action like this. It's not when you have a hardship program, you actually have a hardship program, and this would apply. But like I said, you're creating a precedent, and the next time there are layoffs or something like this happens, you may be called upon to act in a similar way, and I hope you're prepared to follow your precedent and act the way you've done tonight. That's my caution.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. I also, what Ms. Fay said, this is hopefully a temporary fix, and it's a delay, not a forgiving of a payment, and hopefully this will be resolved. We also have incredible partners in, I'm sorry, Mr. Wenograd. Sorry about that. No, I didn't. I don't want to pronounce you. No, go ahead.
Mayor, get to the last words. I've got to jump in. Thank you all for the very good comments. I just want to very, very briefly say that once in a while we get to do something that's both compassionate and fiscally prudent, and that reflects a bipartisan spirit at the statewide level. So I just think that that's a sort of rare opportunity for us. I'm glad we're having an opportunity to do it. And I will say, I think Mr. Barnes' comment is perfectly fair about potential precedent. I do think this is a particularly unique situation. What's going on federally is disgraceful, and the impact certainly on our federal employees, the workers are being forced to work without pay and delayed pay. We know statistically that many people do not, live paycheck to paycheck, and this can have a devastating effect, and they have no real way to make up for that lost income. We're also seeing effects in other areas on the shutdown, including HUD is not paying landlords, so we're at risk of evictions. In some parts of the country, we have food stamps running out soon. This isn't the end of it, but at this level, at least we have an ability to help a few people, a few of our residents, and I'm proud to be able to say we can do our little bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wenograd. I just also want to thank some of our local residents, restaurants, that are stepping up to help and put people on a tab that might be on a string, including Cook and the Bear, Luna, Harry's, and World of Beer, that I'm sure it will grow. And as time goes on, this also could ripple further into our community. And I know that our fuel, our assistance program, our Town That Cares Fund, and our food pantry is also helping contractors and other people that are outside of the program, but need assistance as well. So we will keep our ears open and our eyes open and help when we can. All right, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion. Okay, sorry. All those, that motion passes. Reports from the town manager, Mr. Hart.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a few items I'd like to touch on, and then I'd like to ask our town clerk, Ms. LeBreau, if she can elaborate a little bit on our upcoming special election. So first of all, more good news on our bond rating. Council will recall we informed you a week or so ago that the two major bond rating agencies, S&P and Moody's, reaffirmed the town's AAA bond rating. And perhaps more importantly, they also removed the negative outlook that they had issued last year. So that's very good news. The bond rating is important to us because the better your bond rating, the lower the credit risk you pose, and the lower the interest rate the town and its taxpayers will pay on the bonds that it issues. So it was good news to get those ratings reaffirmed. And just today, we sold $10 million worth of bonds. We sell bonds every single year. And we received a very good rate. We had a true interest cost of a little over 2.65%, a little bit higher than last year, but we were shooting to get something under 2.75, and we achieved that goal. We had roughly 10 bids today, and Bank of America Merrill Lynch had the lowest bid, so that's who will be purchasing our bonds, and we'll be using those bonds, as you know, to fund various projects in our capital improvement program. So that's very good news. Next item I wanted to touch on is this past weekend. We dealt with our first major winter storm of the season, and I'd really like to commend our public works staff, our facility staff, and all of our public safety personnel for the very good job they did dealing with some very challenging weather conditions. I think we all know about the extreme cold we faced, the snow followed by the ice. So the team, they were in place for a number of hours, and I think they did a very, very fine job, and wanted to commend them for that. Next, I thought we had a really, really wonderful event yesterday commemorating Martin Luther King Day, and I'm sure the mayor will want to comment on this when we get to her report. But would like to acknowledge and commend all of the folks who are involved, the mayor, our various guest speakers. We had 2 student speakers who were just outstanding. Senator Blumenthal dropped by, had some very moving remarks. And it's an event that the town of West Hartford does every single year. I think this was our 23rd or 24th year. I think we're somewhat unique in the region with the event that we're able to put together. And it's a nice testament to our town. And I'd like to acknowledge my colleague, Renee McHugh, who works in my office, her daughter, Julia, as well, for the hard work they put in every year to put that event together. And then lastly, I wanted to remind the council that following tonight's regular meeting, we're going to have a closed session discussion on the status of our collective bargaining agreement with our firefighters union. So now if Ms. LeBreau can talk a little bit about the upcoming special election, and then we have your report attached to mine, Mayor.
Okay, today was the deadline for nominating petitions, and we had over 500 signatures submitted this afternoon. Those will be verified by my office, brought to the Secretary of State's office tomorrow for verification, and absentee ballots will be printed by Friday. So they will be available. And we will be visiting nursing homes to do supervised voting as well. And so everyone that will be out of town, that has a disability or illness or any of the reasons that are on the application for an absentee ballot, please mail them in, bring them in. We will be mailing out permanent absentees on Friday as well. So you can come into the office anytime after Friday in person or mail it in, and we will mail it out within 24 hours.
Thank you, Ms. LeBreau. I also want to say that it would thank Renee very much for a really, really special morning celebration. Actually, people didn't want to leave. I stayed in the auditorium for a while after the very inspirational speakers, and last year was the 22nd, so this year's the 23rd, and we had discussions. We broke it into discussion groups and talked about the meaning of Martin Luther King's life and how we could make our own community a more beloved community. And we were sort of hungry for that this year. So I think that some members of the committee might want to go back to that next year. I always find the student speakers to be the most motivating of the program. But what was so unique about this program was the student speaker. He's actually a senior in college, the same age as my youngest son, and he was a speaker 4 years ago, and that was really cool that he came back as MC of the event. So that was really nice. He's also giant. So there's a picture of me, and I look like I'm his pet. It's kind of funny, actually. But anyway, so the Children's Charity Ball, tickets are available at the Bridge Children's Family Center, and it is this Saturday, so I think you better get them fast. It's at the Marquee in Hartford, and it's the 50th anniversary of the Bridge Family Center, and they do remarkable, remarkable work for our community and the region. The Chamber's State of the Town with Mayor Sherry Cantor. West Hartford's Chamber of Commerce will hold the State of the Town event on Thursday, January 31st at noon at the Delamar Ballroom. And I will discuss past year and plans for the future. Pre-registration is required, so please go to the Chamber website to register. Off to kindergarten parent information meeting. West Hartford Public Schools and Great by 8 invite parents and guardians of the kindergarten class of 2019-2020 to attend an informational meeting on Monday, January 28th at 6:30 p.m. in the Town Hall Auditorium. Learn more about the registration process and what to expect in the day of the life of a kindergarten student. And isn't it everything you need to know in life is you learn in kindergarten? I think it's pretty true. Anyway, anyone turning 5 on or before January 1st by 2020 are eligible to register. RSVP to RSVP Great by 8, that's all one word, at gmail.com. And the snow date is February 4th. Murder for Two at Playhouse on Park. Everyone is a suspect in this uproariously funny musical with murder mystery with a twist. One actor investigates the crime, the other plays all of the suspects. And they do this while playing the piano. A zany blend of classic musical comedy with a madcap mystery. This 90-minute whodunit is a highly theatrical duet loaded with killer laughs. It runs through February 3rd. To purchase tickets, go to the box office or visit Playhouse on Park. King of Change, Bravery in the Face of Adversity. Join the University of St. Joseph in honoring and celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s work to advance peace and justice through nonviolence. This year's celebration includes Mississippi gospel harmonies of the Como Mamas movement and spoken word by members of the USJ community, including the winner of the Change Agent writing contest and keynote speaker Victoria Christgau, the director of the Connecticut Center for Nonviolence. Tickets are free with RSVP recommended. Online at tickets by calling Francis Driscoll box office at 860-231-5555. That's all I had. Anybody else? Okay. Then we will go to reports from Corporation Counsel.
Good evening. I have no formal report. I'm happy to answer any questions, and there is no need on my part for an executive session.
Okay. He was being blamed, I think, for.
Look how happy he is.
Well, bye-bye. World of Beer, here he comes. Okay. All right. With that, we have one appointment, and I think Mr. Barnes has one appointment. So you go first.
you want to move them together?
Sure.
All right, so we'll make one motion. Can I get a second? Second. Motion to appoint Adam Keating, appointed as a regular member to the Board of Assessment Appeals for a term ending 12/31/21.
And Kathy Gobes, appointed to Risk Management Advisory Board for a term ending 12/31/2020. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. And we're down to 21. Ms. Kerrigan.
I move adoption of the consent calendar.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. 22. Ms. Kerrigan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move receipt from James G. Green, 1/9/2019, resigning from the Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Commission.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. And I want to thank.
Can I just make a quick comment to thank Jim?
Absolutely.
Jim Green's, thank you. Jim served on the bike committee, I think 7 or 8 years, has been a long-time dedicated member to that group and done a lot of good work, and just want to take the opportunity to thank him for his service. It was long and distinguished, so thank you, Jim.
Can I also comment?
Yes,
I'd like to
Mr.
say
Smith.
thank you to Mr. Green, as I call him, but appreciate his service to the town. He's a long time family friend, but does a lot of great stuff for the town of West Hartford.
And I will ditto all of those remarks. Okay. And we don't vote on that, right, do we? No. We do vote on, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Good night.